Today's episode brought to you by Gnawbone Studios. Show, don't tell.
Hi, I'm Yasmin Angoe, and you should be watching the Crew Reviews.
Everybody, we would love to welcome Yasmin Angoe to the show.
Hey,
Welcome to the
hey,
show.
how are you?
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a treat.
We're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled about your debut. Her name is Night. Congratulations on that.
Thank
That's
you.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So your debut thriller, Her Name is Night, as I just said, is now out in the world. Can you give our audience a quick overview of the story?
Yeah, okay. So, and that's very hard to ask an author who's used to being very wordy.
We know.
To be
Quick is relative. I mean, yeah.
Right. Okay, well, so Her Name is Night is about Nina Knight, who is an elite Ghanaian assassin for a clandestine organization composed of very powerful African people. And she, on a mission, sees someone from her past that she thought was long gone, someone who had totally demolished her village in Ghana and killed her family. And so when she sees them, she kind of changes her mission and decides that she is going to go on this path of revenge and also redemption for herself because she's dealing with some things. And she needs to take out these people before they do again what they did 16 years prior.
Yeah.
Well, and you said dealing with some things that happened.
Yeah, some things.
Human trafficking is central to the plot of Her Name is Night, and you do not flinch in your portrayal of the horrors of human trafficking, but you also show your protagonist, Nina Knight, not allowing this unspeakable act that happened to define her life. Mm-hmm. She takes that power back in her own way, on her own terms. Was it important to show this as a way to add sort of a hopeful element to balance the darkness, or is this more of a sort of a personal message from you, the author, to those who have been hurt in the same way that Nina has?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of both. I definitely, me, myself, I was going through some things at that time. And so I was trying to deal with loss. I had lost my dad not too long before that, and dealing with family and trying to figure out my place. And so that kind of like lended itself to this story. What I wanted to get through to everyone was that, Nina is not a victim. That's not how she would see herself. She is a survivor, and she is someone who saves herself, and she is someone who reclaims, her power that was stolen from her, her identity, and someone who wants to repurpose her life through her choices. And so that is the message that I was trying to get through to everyone. But then I was also trying to shine light on this very horrific thing that I was also trying to figure out during that time, like, why is this thing still happening? And kind of give that little bit of hopefulness, for sure, not only for this character, but for anyone dealing with any kind of loss and trauma that their survival is something that is very much a possibility, and it's something that they should strive for if they can, and they will, and they'll be successful at it.
Awesome.
Well, most of the times when people read books, they kind of skip the beginning, like the first couple pages, and they just go to like chapter 1. But there's something very important in the beginning of Her Name is Night. It's an author's note that you put in there, because this book contains, it's a warning basically, that the story tackles some very complex and highly charged issues, both emotional and physical in nature. And wow, it really does. But were you ever worried that the graphic issues you depicted might be too strong for editors and readers alike when you were trying to shop the book?
I didn't. Well, no, that's not true. I kind of worried about it like after the fact, but during it, while I was writing it, I just wrote like what was on my heart, and I really, really wrote from everything that was within me. It just flowed out, right? And I sat a long time with it. Like I tried and rewrote even before I was querying it to make sure that I was writing it in a way that was very singular in nature to this particular character, and that was told in a way that wasn't gratuitous, that didn't seem performative to anyone. And it focuses on this character's feelings during these events rather than focusing on the actual event that's happening. How is she feeling when these things are happening or when she sees certain things? And that was how I felt like I was being true to the character and not trying to say, hey, this is what people like go through, but like, this is what this one character, what I envisioned for this one character, this is how she's dealing with these events that are happening to her and that she's experiencing. And I wanted to make sure that when I did it, I knew it was going to be tough, but I thought to myself that I portrayed it in the best respectful way that I saw fit. And then even when I was querying it, I mean, I let people know ahead of time. So that's always something that I try to do is, hey, wait a minute now, before you read it, like, let me just tell you that it's going to be difficult, but there's going to be a light at the end of that tunnel. And I hope that when people are reading it, they don't say, oh my gosh, well, they'll clutch their pearls and things, but then they'll see that there's so much more, like, that's not the thing that makes the book. You know what I'm saying? It's her journey and her survival that makes the book. And so I think that's what gives people, lets people give me grace for it.
Yasmin, I didn't clutch my pearls. I clutched my SIG 229.
Well, and Yasmin, to your point, I think the term human trafficking is sort of antiseptic. It's sort of sterile. People don't put the horrific reality to that term. And I think if you don't demonstrate it in the way you do, then it doesn't have the power. Then your story loses a lot of its power.
Yeah.
And so I think tip the hat to you, but better you than me, because I had trouble reading it.
I had trouble writing it. It was a tough one. It was a tough one, but I got through it, and I know that Sean, you did too.
Yeah. Hey, Nina's an action hero, kind of in the vein of a lot of our favorite authors and characters like the Scott Harvath, and the Gray Man and the Mitch Rapp. And so tell us a little bit about how you go about constructing the action sequence. So does visualizing those scenes come easy to you? And if not, where do you come from in drawing on, that energy that you're able to portray, in your book?
Right. So I am a huge action fan. I love everything action. It's what I read. I'm reading the James Pattersons and the Lee Childs and all of those things. I love Jack Reacher and Mission Impossible and all those things. And so that's something that that gives me so much joy and gets me really amped up. And so when I'm watching that stuff, I am always looking at their fight scenes and their whole entire, how they blow things up and how that whole thing looks, right? And in my personal life, I have a friend who she takes martial arts class and all these fighting classes. And so I asked her for a lot of the moves, and I'm like, this is what I'm trying to do. If you want to really how do you really get someone and just make them totally pass out or whatever? And so she gives me these moves, and then she says, okay, now go to YouTube and look this up. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. And I look it up, and I'm really and I'll watch the videos over and over and I'll like write down like every bit that they're doing. And then like I'll even try to act it out on myself. So like when I'm in the room and I'm writing the stuff, and then I'll stop and I'm trying to visualize it, and I'll just be there and I'll like, you know, try to chop someone in the solar plexus or whatever. And like my family will walk past and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like,
do it to your kids.
I'm researching. This is what I'm doing. And I just look at them like they're crazy. But like, so that's what I do. So it's very like those fight scenes and anything that's really action packed, I'm like going over it and over it and over it. And I have another friend who works in law enforcement. So I'm asking him about, and and listen, I'm in South Carolina, so they got a lot of guns here. And and so I'm asking him, you know, what about these guns? And like, what do you like, all this other stuff. And so I've got people who are kind of in those areas that can kind of help me out. And then I also do like my research and if I see something like on TV and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool gun, I'll try to figure out like what that is and look that up too. So I'm a real like geek when it comes to that. I just love everything like action. That's where it's
my girl.
And thrillers.
Right. Yes,
it comes out in the story.
Like it.
It comes out in the story. It's authentic. Like, and at no point where I was like, nah, that's not happening that way. That's not real. So I mean, you nailed it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you find your kids being more responsive to your directives since they've been watching you? Like,
no, they won't take me seriously because I guess I look goofy. Maybe if I actually go to like one of these classes with my friends, then they'll see like I know some things. That's what I tell them. And I tell my husband that too. I'm like, you know what? I think I could really fight. Like if I got in a fight, I think now I can really do it because I know what to do. And they're just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So, just go write something. That's what they do. Go write something. Okay.
Well, speaking of writing something, from a storytelling point, Her Name is Night is told in a dual timeline. And I really dig dual timelines as a reader, but as a writer, it can be intimidating as hell. Did you write each story individually and then meld them together, or are you more jumping back and forth between them as you went?
I wrote them individually because to me, they were two separate stories, two books in one. Yeah. And I felt like the two halves of her were so different that I needed to give all of my attention to one at a time. And so I wrote Anime first because I felt like I needed to get through the whole story of Anime to really understand how Nina's reactions to people and how she was going to be. And even that is what that's why Anime's the before chapters are told in first person present, because I want you, just as I was, to be very much in her mind and in her body and you know, really immersed in this character, and you're experiencing things exactly as she's experiencing at the moment she is. And then as she becomes in the after chapter, when she's Nina is way more reserved. She's not that innocent anymore. And so she's closed off. And so she wouldn't allow the reader to be in her mind in first person present as she would have at 14, if that makes sense. That's why she was third person past, because she's going to be more, you know, beside you rather than let you be like right in there. So that was my thinking.
Did you have?
Does that sound fancy? Because I really thought about that.
No, it's awesome. Because I was kind of hoping that was the way you were going, because I was going to be even more humbled by the fact that you could go back and forth so smoothly. But was it a difficult process, sort of pasting that all together, cutting it, knowing where to like cut story A and start story B? Was that a difficult process at all?
No, because with that one, I worked with like backwards design. I knew the point where I wanted them to converge, and when I wanted them to join in and really become one. And I especially had that. There's a particular line that is the point where they converge on the last, I think, before chapter. And that's when she's like, you know, I could write a whole book about it. And I wrote that purposefully because it was like me making a little joke, like she literally did just write a book about all these experiences. And so that leads into her present. So like, that's the only, once I did that and I knew that this is the point at which I want them to converge and we're only in present, then everything else just kind of like, lined up. And I just knew the parts where I needed everyone to kind of see this is what happened. And so maybe this is why she is this way right here.
There aren't too many authors writing Black female protagonists who possess the same kick-ass skills as characters as like a James Patterson or a Mark Rainey book, but that's exactly what you created with Nina Knight. And she's not one-dimensional at all. I mean, her backstory is richly detailed. When we were just talking, kind of talking about it.
Yeah.
But where or what or who did you draw upon as you crafted this fascinating and deeply scarred character?
Yeah. So the reason why I made her the way she is because when she first came to my mind in, in 2010. And that was when my dad, right after my dad had passed. And I was like, I want to write finally a book about stuff that I really, really enjoy, which is, action and stuff. Before that, I was trying to write a women's fiction, which I love, but like, that's not really what I watch. I watch, my action stuff, because those are the movies that got me through, that time, and, divorce and all that stuff is watching all of those things. And
Right.
My favorite movie is Mission Impossible. Look, I named my oldest child after a character in Mission Impossible. So if that doesn't tell y'all how much I love an action movie, I love an action movie. It was, what's funny, I'm going to give you a little aside, is my last name, or my kid's last name is Hunt. And so Mission Impossible, the main character is Ethan Hunt. So my kid is Ethan Hunt, and it just worked out. And I said, that's kismet, and that's what it's going to be. And so he's so proud of it too. So
that's awesome.
My mom named me after Mission Impossible Tom Cruise. And so one day when I meet Tom Cruise, I'm gonna let him know. But at that time, when I was thinking about this character, I was like, I'm gonna write this character, and I really want it to be someone who's highlighting my culture, because I'm first generation Ghanaian American. But I want to write about the genre that I really, really love. I don't really see that many women who look like me, who are from the place that, my family is from, in that genre that I love. Women in general at that time, now you see more of them in like the main character, position. But at that time, I really didn't see anybody who was in that, main character position. They were mostly like the romantic interest, the damsel that was getting saved, the right-hand person. They weren't in that pivotal role. And so I said, I'm going to write that person then, because that's what I want to see. I want to see a woman who looks like me, kicking ass, doing everything that Jack Reacher and Ryan and Jason Bourne and John Wick and all of them and Ethan Hunt are doing. But she's just going to do it a little better because she's got layers, like an onion, like Shrek.
And make you cry.
John Wick and Shrek. That's how you pitched it. It's John Wick meets Shrek.
Yes, exactly.
Which one does he look like? We've had a ton of authors in this show, and they all have their own personal journey to publication stories, and they're all different, but there is also some flavors that kind of they share. So, there's lots of rejections, there's stops, there's starts, etc. And our audience would love to know, what your road to that publication looked like.
Yeah, so I had a whole lot of starts and stops. And I can tell you, I guess I'll be aging myself, but my first foray into Querian was before people were like emailing, your submissions. You had to send it snail mail, you had to print it out and like send it in that big old envelope and all that. And so that's when I first started. Yes, exactly. And that was the worst. So like I've had a lot of starts and stops, because then I stopped to, raise my family, and we were a military family. So we were traveling and things. And so that also lends to why I like, action as well, because being a military wife, we're on base and there's like shooting and all this other stuff. And so, I dug it. I liked it.
Family day at the base? Get to blow stuff up, right?
Exactly. When they go to the field and all that, like all that gear, it was the best. That was the best time. So when I wrote this book, I started it when I finally decided I'm going to get this thing done. I'm going to do it now. I feel ready. It was in 2018. And then I finished it in 2019 in the summer. And I said, I'm going to get it all nice and polished and pretty and everything, and start querying it in 2020. And then that's what I did in January of 2020. And I was getting a whole lot of rejection. But when I wrote it, I just knew, I was like, Yasmin, you're going to query this thing. And the first person they're just going to be like, I want it. And we're going to you got all the deals and everything. Like, I just knew it was going to get an agent and it was just going to sell right away. But that didn't happen. I had so many rejections. Man, they kept telling me no. They kept saying, we can't connect. And I was like, but your story's great, but we can't connect. And I was like, what does that mean? Yeah. And I was like, what? Because it gave me nothing. I'm an English teacher, so it gave me nothing to fix. And, English teachers want to fix stuff. Yeah. And I was like, I got nothing to fix with connection. I don't understand. And so I was just querying, and I even queried my my current agent. And then I just kind of let that to the side because it started getting to me, even though I knew that the story was so good. I was like, okay, maybe it is me. All these people are telling me no for a reason. So I must suck at it and I'm going to quit. And so I said, this is it. I'm going to stop. I didn't work with my women's fiction. It's not working with this. I'm just going to stop writing altogether. And then I'm part of a group, Crime Writers of Color. And one of the members on there, Kelly Garrett, she was like, oh, well, Sisters in Crime has this, Eleanor Taylor Bland Award for Emerging Writers of Color. Why don't you, submit to it? And I'm like, yeah, I don't win anything and I'm about to quit, but whatever, I'll just do this one more thing. This one more thing I'm going to do. And I submitted it and I literally forgot about it. And then a few weeks after I submitted it, then I got an email from my agent, Melissa, and she was like, hey, do you want to hop on a call? And I'm like, what? You mean me? You want to talk to me? And she's like, yeah, let's get on the call.
Had she already rejected you, Yasmin?
She rejected me on my women's fiction, actually. Okay. So, and then I submitted to her again because, I don't know how to take no for an answer for this one. I was like, and I was hoping, well, maybe she won't remember me from the first one. But so she called me on that one and she offered. And then, another agent offered. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so when I signed on with her, literally maybe a week after, I see an email that's been sitting in my my box, and it's like, you're a winner. And I'm like, this is some junk mail, because what those, all the emails say.
Just send us $5,000.
So I'm like, that's junk. And I put it in my junk mail, and I was almost about to delete the thing. And I said, but wait, let me look at this thing again. And I look at it, and it's a legit thing. And so it just went from there. And so what I tell people is my journey was long. It's over 20 years that I finally got, that yes, after hundreds of no's.
Amazing.
But when it happened very quick. The agent, the award, the deal, and then the TV thing and all that stuff happened, boom, boom, boom. And that's not normal either. So I always say that to people, that's not normal either. But what I've learned from it is, you're, no matter what you learn, the rejections that you get, right? If I hadn't done that one more thing, then I wouldn't have gotten the word and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? I would have gotten the agent, but I don't know how all this other stuff would have transpired. And so that's what I even tell my kids, is just always, no matter what, you may feel down, you could take a break for a minute, but then always just try this one more thing, because that could be the thing for you. And so that's my story, people.
That's awesome, though.
Well, going from such a well, let's just say low, because it is, you're being told that no, you're not any good. To an extent. And then all of a sudden you're winning awards, and you're and everything's at a rush. So you've gone from one extreme to another. So has any of that impacted your thought process going into book 2?
Well, yeah, like it gave me a whole lot of imposter syndrome because I'm like, what if everybody, that's why when I was telling you that my developmental editor like just emailed me and I'm like, oh shit, like what is she about to tell me? Now they're about to tell me, you know what, we effed up, like we're taking everything back, and like that's because everything happened so fast, right? So I didn't even get a chance to breathe and I didn't get a chance to really sit with it. And be like, okay, I'm good. I'm still thinking about all those rejections that I got,
right.
And trying to figure
Yasmin,
out
how many rejections was that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I mean, it was legit over 100. Like I emailed everyone and asked everyone. I might have even like queried my own mother. I don't know, but like I just like everybody. I was asking everybody to just take a look, like give me a chance.
Yeah.
And they were saying no. Or ignoring me because some of them just don't, and you just never know. So I was really dealing with all of that when all of this, and so I was like, this can't be possible because I don't win anything, and I definitely don't get yeses because all I get are no's. And even now to today, I'm just like, I can't. People ask, well, how was launch day? And I'm like, I guess it was okay. I'm waiting for people to be like, to read it and be like, yeah, no, it's really not. So when y'all tell me, oh, you've got reviews or people are like, oh, it's so great. I'm like, really? You think so? For real? Like validate me.
Right.
So
yeah, you're waiting for that.
That sounds bad. I know, but
no. I mean,
it's human nature.
Any of us who throw words out there for other people to read, we want people to like them. We want people to read them first, and then we want people to like them. I mean, there's nothing negative about that. That's why would we tell stories if we didn't care if somebody read them or not? So that's wonderful. It's good.
But we're all writers, so like the rejection thing. I mean, that is just a common theme.
You hit submit, and then you're like 10 seconds later, you want a response from somebody, and then weeks go by.
Think my high school dating had prepared me for that kind of rejection, but it didn't.
It didn't. Yeah, no.
Dating.
Well, Yasmin, you mentioned that you're a first generation Ghanaian American, which means you likely had a strong influence from both worlds. What part of Yasmin's personality is uniquely Ghanaian? And what part of your personality is undoubtedly American? And that's a long question. And how do you think your particular background manifests itself in your storytelling voice?
That's a good question. So Ghanaians, Africans in general, we love a good story, folk tale and folklore and superstition and all that stuff is a huge part of our culture. We're oral storytellers. And so my parents, were really big, especially my mom, on like telling the history, things. And she's always talking about like what's happened in the past and things like that. Growing up in two worlds, like I didn't think that was a question. That's a good question that you asked me. I don't know like what is, like I think the making stories that are visual, and cinematic in a way, is something that I get from like my Ghanaian side me, because when they're telling the story orally, you've got to make it so that the listener can like envision what you're saying and see what it is. And so when I'm writing, I am very particular about making sure that I am setting the scene and I am making it as visual and cinematic as possible, because those are the things that I love to see. And I just love a good story. And so I think that's where my culture comes in, is because we really love a good story and we get animated. If you meet my mom, she just really gets into like her whole story. And she's like, oh, Yasmin, and let me tell you what happened here. And this is so funny. And I'm going to, and then she just gets so, and then you start to maybe not totally understand because her accent gets really thick and I'll have to translate for you or whatever the case may be, but she gets so into it and her whole body is in the story, And so when I write, I feel like my whole body is in the story. And that's why when I'm acting out those action scenes, my whole body is in that story. Why won't my family understand that? I should tell them that. I should write it down and tell.
They're second generation. They're second generation. So
they don't get it.
Do they don't get that? Do they like to eat? Then they're gonna have to listen to you.
Exactly.
I kind of want to meet your mom now.
I know your mom sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
She is. One day y'all will, and then you'll just be like, that Evelyn, she's a funny lady.
We're gonna bring her on the
To
show.
everybody else except for me. To me, she's mom. But
Yeah,
like, yeah, everyone else loves her.
yeah.
So keeping with the theme of Africa, so it's a land with abundant natural resources, and to this day, it's still exploited by outside nations. And although much of it's still very tribal, and you get into that in the book a little bit, there are large swaths of underdeveloped communities. Do you believe, as the African Tribal Council of your novel does, that there's a path toward bringing the continent together? Like, do you, in today's world, do you think that's a possibility?
I think it is if people get behind it. Like, that is truly what I envision for it. I think it would be so fantastic. Like, if you hear some of the more younger people who are speaking out, like in Africa, like the different parts and stuff. I was listening to a song the other day and they were like, One Africa. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what is in my book. And I can't believe it, because I thought, like, I don't mean to be like, I'm the only one thinking this, but when I was writing this, I was like, I'm the only one thinking like of one Africa, and not for Africa to be any better than anyone else, but to be like a United States of America, but we're a united Africa where we are the owners and the purveyors, and we're the one that sets the course of what all of our natural resources are, where they're going to go and who they're going to, and we're the one prospering off of these things. And it's been so many years where my mom, we're Catholic, right? We're Catholic because of colonization and stuff like that.
The Portuguese and
Exactly. So like those kinds of things where we can go back to being tribal, but then also like we still have tribes within Ghana or within Africa, and they still play a part even in like the democratic politics and things like that. They listen to the chieftains and things like that. And I mean, I love how they're able to merge their old with their new and still have like all that culture. But then I also want the world to see that like they're not third world like people all think. And that's why I wanted to make like the tribe is and the tribe fascinates me. And I'm the one who wrote them. And I'm like, you guys are so fascinating because there's so many things, and your goal is so great. You go to extremes, but like your goal is so great. And I love that there's just these rich people who like nobody really knows about, and they are all trying to make this one thing happen. And like I want everybody to see that there are Africans in these positions who are huge business people who are all doing all these things, but we just don't know about it because they work beneath and people kind of like in Africa, like I'm not really going to take you seriously and stuff like that. So I just wanted like readers to take it a little bit more seriously, to be able to envision them in a different space than what people are used to seeing when they see how some Africans can be portrayed in movies or books or things like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm babbling, you guys. I just get excited.
It's worth talking about.
Thorough and great answers.
Yeah,
I think of like, so you're like a movie buff, and in my house, so are we. And I think of like Wakanda and the idea of like a strong African nation, but like the entire continent, because Africans have been exploited for centuries, first as human labor, and then their natural resources now, maybe even still human labor to this day. And it would just be fascinating to see it come together. The European Union did it, America with the States, we've done it. It'd be fascinating to see what would happen. It would rise everybody up out of poverty and all that. It'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of, if you compare it to, and it's kind of a bad comparison because the people here aren't all lifted up either, but like in the Middle East, oil is used as a resource to enrich their countries. But there's so many different things within the land in the continent of Africa that if they were harnessed by the people of Africa, they could, just kind of taking your answer a little further, they could pretty much solve a lot of their own problems, instead of having interlopers.
Yeah.
So
Right, exactly. To have so much poverty in a continent that is so wealthy, and I have a T-shirt that has like all the different resources that all the different countries have, and it's like this whole continent is so rich.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
But like the people aren't reaping the benefits from it, and that's a travesty. And that even happens here in the US and in all the so many countries out there. And so that's just something that I would love for everyone. I like everyone to be on the same like wavelength, and then everyone just kind of do what they need to do, but like we're all there, it's equal for all.
Right. The footing is equal for everybody.
The footing is equal for all. Right.
A good portion of our audience are writers. And so from a background as a teacher and a developmental editor and now a debut author, you had to fight a lot of adversity to get where you're at today. What's some of the most valuable advice that you can offer to those folks who are watching this episode today?
So that's a good one. There's so much. So writing your story, I think you need to make sure that whatever promise that you're trying to give to the reader, that you follow through on that whole entire thing. Sometimes writers don't know their promise as they're writing it, and they have to kind of be told, well, I think this is what your promise is. Is this what you mean? Which is your message, or what you intend to, what you're telling the reader that you're going to give them in this book. And that's what I see, like as a developmental editor. That's what I saw when I was with my students. And when I was with my students, I would try to tell them, like, whatever it is that you're trying to say, like, who are you saying it to? And are you making sure to say it in the best way possible so that they can receive it as clearly as possible, with your characters, with your plot, with your, if it's an essay that's nonfiction, then with whatever, your messages that you're trying to say with your theme, is it coming through? And it's hard for people to see that. So when you have written what you've written, you have to also, if you really want people to read it, then you have to kind of think of the business side, and you have to think about the reader and take yourself out of it and be prepared to receive feedback and critique that you may not like. But you have to, listen to it with an open heart so that you get the best possible story there for the reader, because you want them to enjoy it. It's all about entertainment at the base. And that's something that I had to learn. And thank goodness I was a developmental editor by the time that I got the deal, because then when I get these, notes back from my developmental editor, it still hurts my feelings. It still takes me a week to open up. Like, I'm like, how long do I have on this? Because I legit need a whole entire week to get myself ready. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to open it up. Yes, I'm like, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open it up. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should check Twitter, and I'll open it up. And so it takes me a week before I can look through, what their notes are. And I mean, now they know, probably they're like, okay, so that's why she's like, she gets it in right at the nick of time, because I've taken up a whole entire week. But like, so even me, but like knowing both sides as an editor and then also as a writer, I'm able to be more compassionate to writers, because I know how they feel. So that kind of helps me speak to them a little bit differently. Yeah. To kind of like, and then tell them like, now this is what needs to be done, right? And this is why it needs to be done. But then it also helps me as a writer, because I know that what they're telling me is something that probably really needs to be done, and I can't be too much of a feeling.
I like the give them the good, give them the bad, and then give them the good again. And massage that ego a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. We call that the sandwich method in education.
Oh,
We're giving them a sandwich.
Yep.
That's great. Yasmin, you were raising a glass because you have passed the regular portion of the interview, the normal portion of the interview.
Nice.
Congrats.
Semi-professional portion of the interview. And now we are on to the lightning round.
Okay.
And the lightning round could be a lot of things. It could be serious. It could be nonsensical. We've had some really dumb questions before. We'll try to steer clear of those.
They were They're all Sean's.
No, they're not. I can prove it.
No, they're not.
So my first question, though, is I would like you to teach us a Ghanaian swear word.
Oh my gosh. You're really going to make her swear?
I don't know a Ghanaian swear word. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. What an angel.
We're talking to your mom about this.
No, because she would clutch her pearls. Like now I'm gonna have to ask her. She's gonna be like, "Oh, but we don't say any swear words," because she's gonna try to act very sanctimonious. So
you can email it to me.
Yeah,
if you want.
Email it to you. But yeah, no. Like I don't even think they.
All right.
Okay.
I like
right.
it. Okay, that's cool.
How many people are just pure? They don't.
They're not though.
Turn looks and finger waves.
You're funny, no, because anytime that I heard my dad cursing or whatever, it was in English. So like I think that they mix it up, so you just hear like yeah I did and then fuck or whatever, which is oh my god, that's what they were doing.
Well, I always knew like my Hispanic friends, like when their mom was like seriously angry, like she would just go blah, 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 and you're like, oh my gosh, dude, you're
she's
about
saying
to get
something.
it. Like, you know what's coming.
Okay, my second question: tougher critic, your editor, your agent, or some random middle schooler you taught?
Oh Jesus.
Oh man, my agent, if it's about writing stuff. Tougher critic would be definitely a middle schooler, because those 8th graders can be a beast.
Brutal.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
they won't. They
Yeah.
won't.
Raised 4 that got through there, so I know.
Yeah, my sister's an 8th grade English teacher. Whew, bad news.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So she knows, like, you can't go to. Listen, if you go to Walmart, you better be dressed, because if those students see you in like your pajamas, they like seek you out, and
They're
so
gonna take a
like,
picture.
Right. So I already
of
know
that.
how to evade paparazzi, because I evade students, and like I'm in that potato. Oh, I see. Oh, and then I go and
that's
I
little
just
Johnny.
hide. So
Hide.
it's covert operations. You try to go when you know they're not going to be there.
And next thing you know, you're on a Snapchat or a
Yeah.
Instagram
Exactly.
post
They
or
surely
something.
will do that. Yep, they surely would.
Now, my final question actually has a pre-question, because I have to ask this to ask the other one. Did you have your title first, or did you have your character name first?
Ooh, that's a good one. I had my character name first, but it was a different name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that good, because I was sitting here thinking, if your
Before
name
or
was,
after?
like, Nina Drabowski or something like that. Her name is Drabowski.
Ghanaian.
Carry the same sort of emotional weight
Polish
as
Ghanaian.
She's
Oh my
trying to
Polak
pull
went to
Polish
the
woman.
Polish.
That's funny. That is funny. No, she had a different name, and she had a different last name too. And actually, the title was totally the title that I sent, because I'm actually bad at titles, and so my title will be exactly what the story is. And so the title is Wodani, which means killer in Tree, which is the dialect of her father. And so and I was like, that's what it is, because that's what she is. She's a killer, so that's the title. But Thomas and Mercer were like, yeah, no,
That's not
it's not gonna be that.
We
Love it.
We tested that word and it doesn't resonate.
Google Translate was not
Because
happy.
they're like, people will have trouble pronouncing it. And I said, okay. So that's why you see it a lot in the story, because that's what she's called in the story. But yeah.
So when you would save your files, would you save it with the name of when I save my writing files, like I save it as the name of the story or my work in progress. Did you save it as that?
Yeah. As Wilderness, yeah, it's saved. I'm looking right at it right there. It's saved as that, or the original ones, and then it gradually, now it's I see how I have it. I have it as night, and then in parentheses Wilderness, because I'm like
giving that up. You're not giving that up.
I'm not giving it up.
In your heart, it's still that.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned it before. What was your first thought when you'd won the Eleanor Taylor Bland Award for Emerging Writers of Color from Sisters in Crime? What was your first thought?
My first thought was, are they for real?
Yeah.
You talking about after I actually opened it and realized that it was a real, genuine.
Wow.
Yeah,
I was are they
it wasn't a
for real?
scam. Yeah.
Yeah, like are they for real? And I still didn't believe it. And when they said, I was just like, nah, I couldn't be. And are they sure? Like me? And they were like, yeah, you. And they said some nice things. And I was like, my story, because remember, I've had like hundreds of,
right.
and I'm still trying to figure out how my agent, like, I'm like, you like it too? Like, are we sure? So I'm dealing with a little bit of, I'm dealing with a little bit of PTSD.
Yeah.
When it comes to these rejections.
Did your husband believe you? Was he like, nah, you didn't win that?
Yeah, you're like, whatever.
Okay, so to be honest, I didn't tell him right away.
Ooh.
So he didn't know until like nobody knew in the family until way later. I don't think they knew.
They had to buy a suit to go to the awards ceremony.
Yeah, we didn't because it was in the pandemic, so we didn't even have an awards ceremony.
Right.
But until they announced it to like the world, and I had to have like a virtual TV interview. I guess I had to tell him because I didn't want him to walk up behind me and be like and say something and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he'll be like, what the, or because he's an assistant principal at a middle school. So I didn't want him coming and like talking about somebody's child or whatever, and I'm on the camera. So I had to tell him, like, come home nicely, because if it's a bad day, he's like, these kids, So yeah. So I didn't tell anybody.
Wow.
For a long, and even when I got my book deal, I didn't say anything right away because I didn't know how to like. And then also when you have a family who they're not writers, then you got to explain everything to them. And I was like, I don't feel like explaining because they're like, what does this mean? You're self-published. How much?
When's your book coming? When's your book coming?
Yeah.
When's your book coming?
Like, where is it?
Yeah. How much did you have to pay?
And that's exactly. They're like, how much? You didn't have to pay anything. And my mom still, after I've explained it to her now, she's like, but how much money are they taking from it? Like, are you sure this deal is good? Like, I don't know. Are they scamming you? How much do you have to put in? And I'm like, Mom, everything is a deal. Everything is but I don't understand. Like, what is going on? And so this is us every week. I have to re-explain these things to her. So
Well, she's got to be definitely proud of you.
Oh man, this is awesome.
She is.
Pretty amazing. All right. So as a developmental editor, what was the strangest thing you came across that left you just shaking your head?
Oh.
Which one?
Which one? Yeah.
Like, it could be a scene. It could just be like just punctuation. Because I'm sure an editor was like, man, get rid of all these dashes because you're killing me.
Yeah, no, no, I see. Now, I can't really say because
don't say their name.
That person's listening. No, but they'll recognize their story.
Oh,
right.
Nobody watches this show. Don't worry about it.
No, that's not true. But there was something. No, but they really tried though. But like there was just something that they had in there that they had a character doing, and it was so like disgusting. And I was disgusted, and I am pretty good about like, things don't really gross me out or disgust me unless it's throw up. I can't do throw up, but like, I'm pretty good about like stuff. And they had a character who was like scratching his face, and he had like stubble, and he was like pulling his chin hairs out of his face or something like that. And and it was described, and I was just like in my mouth, like I don't can you
not
do
necessary
that? Like,
we're gonna cut that chapter out. You're good.
Yeah,
move along.
I don't know that the reader necessarily needs this part, but it was a really good attempt. But you have hair on your. Can you pull out your hair?
My kids try to. Try it. It's a little short.
That would be. It certainly wouldn't be something I would do voluntarily.
Yeah, no, like.
Yeah,
that would
I hate shaving enough. I'm not going to pull them out individually.
Yeah, and the person was talking to someone else, so they were doing it in front of someone else, and I was like, now would a person really do this? So like that's a question that like I asked a lot is, would somebody really do this?
Oh yeah.
And when I pose it like that, then they're like, oh, okay, maybe. Yeah. But like this person, if you hear this, and I'm not making fun of you, I'm just saying like, well, it's
It was
what I'm
strange.
saying now is nicer than what I probably said, in the thing. But like, keep chugging at that store. We're gonna get it right.
All right.
Do you ever
That was
ever
the
get worried?
sandwich, by the way. That was
Yeah,
the
the
sandwich.
sandwich. Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I'm like, do you ever get worried that I mean, they hire you, but you ever get worried that these people are going to come back and be like, I hate you, I want a refund?
Yeah, so there's not gonna be any refunds. And I'll say that at the very beginning. Like you don't have to take, you don't have to take what I say or anything like that. You don't have to, but I suggest you do. Ultimately, it's gonna be their decision of
Right,
whether
yeah.
they
Yeah,
want to
sure.
or not. And all I say is if you don't, take my advice, not that you have to, because my advice is just me, but if you really are going to go for some of these things that I tell you, if I have to say I strongly suggest you don't do this, then I promise you probably shouldn't do it. But
Yeah,
if you still do it, just don't put my name on as developmental editor, please.
did not.
Because then I will call you out and say, no, let me show you this comment that I made in this document when I said, oh, hell to the no. That's what I said.
And your dumb ass left it in.
Dedicated
So,
to
And you left
Yasmin
it in.
Angoe.
Right. No, don't you do that. And so
all right. So being a teacher is tough, and generally it's an underpaid job. You taught both middle school and high school, right?
Mhm.
So let me ask you, what should be the average starting salary or just the average salary of today's teachers?
Honestly, I think that they should start in the 70s. I got to be honest. And it's because, listen, a lot of people think that teachers, they only work from, 7 to 3, and then that they don't work on the weekends and that they have all these summers off. And it is not true.
That's
we don't
not
get
true.
summers off. No, we don't get summers off. I mean, like we don't have class, but some of us will have summer class that we have to do. We've got a whole lot of professional development. We have to then plan for the next year. Our lesson plans, our whole entire year plan, because the school wants it. And so like those workshops are a lot. We're working on curriculum. We're looking at like what might have not worked in the past year. So we're always working. And then also like during the school year, we don't stop grading just because, the kids went home. Like we're still working and we're still grading till late at night. So when I was trying to write plus be a teacher, plus be a mom, like it was like I was up 24 hours a day, dealing with kids. And then don't forget, on top of it, we have to deal with your kids.
Yeah.
So y'all have
I know.
3 or 4 kids.
That should have been first.
You know your damn children.
Yeah.
You know that should have been first. See, you got me worked up. Why did you start me on this? Don't have me
six
on this
figures,
debate.
Yasmin. Six,
Right.
not 70.
You know your kids. So what I need parents to know, because I know my kids.
Yeah.
And so what I need parents to know is, let's be real, you know your kids.
Yeah.
And so if a teacher tells you your child has done this, chances are your child has done that. So just like, go and talk to the teacher. You don't have to berate them in front of your kids. Don't do that, because that's, like that, you're talking to an adult. Don't do that. Because whatever you do, your child will emulate that at school, and they'll try to get, So, so that's the one thing is like your teachers, you guys deal with 3 or 4 kids, unless you are really, adventurous and you have more at home. But the teacher is dealing with 20, 30 kids in one class at a time. In a day, I'm looking at 120 kids in one day. So that's a whole lot of different personalities. That's a whole lot of different like issues that the students will have, and the students will come to you, and I've had students be so mad at me that like they wanted to fight me. I've had to jump in between a fight. I've had to, in high school, I've had to jump on a student's back because he was banging another kid's head against the wall, and there were no other admin. So I had to jump on his back, and that was a ride for sure. But like, so I've had to do that. I've had to jump in, and let me tell you, when 2 girls are fighting, You don't want to jump into
Rude.
that.
Oh, no,
That's
they're
the worst.
nasty.
That's worse than guys. And so, I mean, I've had to do that because I've had a student charge into my room to attack another student, and she didn't even belong to me. So there are a lot of things that teachers go through.
Well,
you know,
the reason there is that guys care about style points, and girls are just in there.
They want to win.
Girls are in there to kill. They want to kill, and so guys, especially
guys want to look good doing it.
They want to look good, and if they realize, hey, there is this teacher on my back, I better stop. Like they'll be a little bit more, because I think ultimately they really don't want to fight. And so if you're like, now stop, and you kind of move in between them, they might think, oh, like that's my mom, I'm gonna back up, and I'm not gonna. But the girls, they'll be like, oh hell no, I'm gonna get this bitch. That's what they're gonna do, and I'm gonna get you to get to this bitch. Is what they're.
Listen, I have an older brother, older sister, and I was more. My brother, like he picked on me as we became better. We became best friends as we get older. But I was terrified of my sister. Yeah. Terrified of her, like because she wouldn't hold back.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Vicious.
Well, at least now we know where you really got the inspiration for your fights, Steve.
I know.
On the back of that.
See, exactly. I've got it through that. That's right. I am tried and tested. I've been in the field for real. Let me tell you. Goodness gracious. So,
All right, I'm up. All right, so you can only choose one, and to satisfy your need for action, it's either pick one, John Wick or Ethan Hawke.
John Wick.
Okay, I'll take that answer.
John Wick.
I really love Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, he plays a great character.
And I love John Wick. What'd you say?
So does my wife.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, yeah.
I mean, well, I just think that he's just done so well with that character. And I just love that character because he's just so like single-minded in the things, and like he just doesn't want anybody to touch his dog in his car, and like that's the thing that drives him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do because you touched my dog in my car, and I'm just like, man, I love that, because I think to me, like, that's really close to like Nina too. Like I won't mess with you until you like mess with my people, and like that's kind of how she is. And I just love John Wick, and I love Keanu.
Yeah.
And you said Ethan Hawke?
I think he meant Hunt.
Hunt.
But I
Ethan Hawke, the actor.
Okay. Yeah, but I love him too, though, because he was my first love.
Yeah. I could see that. All right.
Yeah, and I'll watch all the Mission Impossibles. I do. I love them.
So. Number 2, outside of family, what are 3 things you can't live without?
Okay. I can't live without my lemon pepper chicken wings, which you see in the book. That is Nina's favorite.
Great. Now I want some of
that. Yes. And I can't live without. What else I can't live without? Can I be honest? I can't live without a TV, because I really do love to watch a movie. Yeah. That's what calms me down.
Okay.
And I can't live without like my audiobooks.
All right.
That also calms me.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Let's see. My last question is this. If you weren't born in our current era, what time period, either past or future, do you see yourself most suited for with your personality?
So I'm going to go with, it's going to sound stupid. I'm going to go with like the 1950s, 60s, even though that's probably not the best time era for Black people.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But like whenever was there, really.
Yeah.
But I like that time period only because I really liked the fashion, the clothes that the women wore. So that's why.
People dressed up on airplanes and
yes, and I just
better
thought
than
that
the
those
70s fashion, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, those were nice too, but I really
it was classy.
Here's every school picture from the 1970s for me. It's
12-inch lapels.
Bigger. I think it could be like one of those old-fashioned nun.
My hair.
Right. Yeah, I saw the pictures of my parents, and I was like, you know what, y'all looked very nice, but I like the decades before. Like, I mean, all of that looks good, but yeah, that just for the fashion, not for anything else.
Good enough reason.
Jeez.
Good enough reason.
Well, Yasmin, you have survived the entire show, so we will raise a glass and
Salute. Salute.
This is one hell of a debut. I mean, honestly, I know it's a debut 20 years in coming, but it's the self-assured style, just everything about it. It made me uncomfortable in all the best ways fiction can make you uncomfortable. And it's just one hell of a book. Congratulations on
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much.
Are you sure? Do you mean it? Are you telling me the truth?
Yes.
We'll talk offline.
And all you have to do is open up Goodreads and Amazon, and you're going to see a lot of very positive comments and some authors that we respect. Before I even read this book, some authors we respect were talking it up. So your peers dig it too. So cheers to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the crew.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha.
This was fun.
Well, I thank the fabulous Yasmin Angoe for coming on the show to discuss her fantastic debut. Her name is Night.
Mm-hmm.
Great guest, great book. Buy it and join us next Monday for another fantastic The Crew Reviews.
Do it.
Do
Cheers.
it. Drink up, boys.
You guys ready?
And here we are. This is the outro. And Sean still wearing the shirt that he wore last night to the football game.
No, different shirt.
Ever shower?
Still hungover from the tailgating.
Who were you
And
tailgating with?
Sadly, I didn't have a single drop of alcohol yesterday, but go ahead.
and they won. That's not right.
I was nervous.
2 and game.
I wish we could post it.
Was wishing.
Who's wishing?
Nobody watches the end.
The wrong
you say-
question.
Yeah.
Who's doing? Obviously, no one does because
if you're
took
watching this, post what Sean said and win a book.
fucking forced monkey labor. We didn't get a reply for that for like 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Forced
Okay.
monkey labor. That's the best.
I totally forgot about that. I went back and looked at it. I said, "Oh yeah, I actually
laughed.
put an image.
I
put
forgot
an
until
image
you.
on the show."
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that
There
in
we
the car. And take Christopher. Go.
Yep.
Great book.
Yep.
Buy that.
Buy that. Buy
Buy
that.
Buy this. Is that on Amazon?
Where is that? Where are we in Barnes and Noble?
Take
Great
and
book. Great whiskey.
Take 2. Go.
Great
Well, thank
authors.
Fabulous.
What?
Sorry.
Right,
Take
1, 2, 3.